And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Wheelie Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Micah Toll, and I'm joined again by Electrek's Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And we've got a number of interesting stories this week from a diverse group of vehicles. Everything from new Yamaha concept electric bikes to e-bikes designed by women, for women, to self-balancing electric motorcycles. BMW's new low-cost motorcycle is headed to production. We've got a review of a tiny car from France and more. So where are we going to start this week, Seth?
All right. Why Yamaha's wild new electric bike has two-wheel drive.
So normally when we see these all-wheel drive or two-wheel drive electric bikes, they're sort of big, heavy moped-looking things, 1,000 watts in each wheel. But Yamaha has come out with this concept for an all-wheel drive bike that looks a lot more like a sort of traditional lower power pedal assist type electric bike. It's a bit of a mashup here. It's ostensibly a mountain bike the way they describe it. And the reason that they say they're going with this two-wheel drive setup is for off-roading, that you get that extra traction when you're climbing over obstacles, going through loose terrain, that sort of thing. But there's a weird combination of parts here. The frame is fairly mountain bike styled. We've got that nice through axle inverted front suspension fork, but then it's almost like a utility bike in that it's got front and rear racks built in, and the handlebars seem to be off of like a racing road bike. Not only are they drop bars, but they also have aero bars. You can go into that super tuck, like fists in front of you situation. So it's a weird mashup there. But the real kicker here, it's that all-wheel drive setup. So the way they accomplish that is that they've got a typical mid-drive motor, almost certainly one of their Yamaha mid-drives powering the rear wheel, but the front wheel gets its own hub motor. And it looks like it's one of those through axle hub motors, which are more, more robust. They're probably significantly more expensive, but it's not one of these cheap off the shelf Bafang style hub motors. So it's a pretty interesting looking design. This is a concept. So in this one we're looking at here, this is another one of their e-bikes they rolled out. This one's not all-wheel drive. This second one is a more dedicated mountain bike that's got its own new mid-drive setup, and it claims to have electric power steering, which I don't know how they are. Yeah, right. I mean, I've never had a problem turning the handlebars, so
That is
sure
weird.
The design direction is there. But at least for the all-wheel drive bike, I get it. I think, Seth, you and I have both ridden all-wheel drive bikes before. There's something sort of fun out of feeling both wheels spinning. But this one, what's neat is that, like, yes, it is a concept bike, but everything here seems quite practical. It's a frame that looks like they could actually produce it. It's not like one crazy CNC thing. All of the components seem to be fairly, off the shelf bike components, nice parts. Some of them doubled, or in the case of the headlights, quadrupled up. So there's a little overkill there, but everything here seems producible. It's not like a crazy, outlandish design. So even though it's a concept, Yamaha could potentially make something like this in the future, though the sort of road meets mountain meets utility it's not quite, I don't know, it's not quite checking my boxes. I don't know about you, Seth.
Yeah, I don't see myself in this bike. It does look a little like there's something obviously wrong with it, and that's that it's got drop bars in the front, and it's like the mullet of bikes, drop bars in the front and mountain bike in the back. So yeah, I don't know that I would want something like this, although this could be like a heavy duty gravel bike, I guess, sort of
super heavy duty.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a bunch of cool stuff. I mean, I think if you put, I was kind of looking at this bottom bike for the handlebars. If you put these handlebars on this thing, I think it would make a lot more sense. And we've seen a couple of all-wheel drive bikes, and I think they do well. I don't always think that a second motor is needed. Usually one's enough, especially if you have a pretty powerful one. one thing I do like about the all-wheel drive bikes is that that extra weight in the front is not great for steering, but it's great for keeping the front down. You don't really have a wheelie situation too often with that heavy front wheel. So you know, there's pluses and minuses for sure. Um, but yeah, I like almost everything about this bike, but I don't think I'm gonna be in the market for a combo uh, road bike, mountain bike, all-wheel driver. Interesting.
Yeah. The good news is they have time to refine it a little bit. I think they're showing it off next week at a big mobility show in Tokyo. So that's going to be the big debut, and then they'll be able to do a little revision to some of this.
Yeah, Fred is actually going to be at the Tokyo Mobility Show, so maybe we'll have him
Oh
get
yeah,
some ride time there. Yep.
nice.
All right. Moving on. The first electric bike designed by women for women.
So this is an e-bike. It's called the Maven Cargo, and it comes with an interesting story. So the designer of this bike is a woman named Laura Belmar, and so she started this company after going to the Taipei Cycle Show and meeting with, well, she described it, thousands of bike industry contacts, but she said she didn't meet a single female on the buyer or brand side, and so she wanted to start an e-bike company and design a bike with the female perspective. And so the way she explains it is that the design of the Maven here is quote, so that women and shorter riders can confidently carry cargo. It's built for sharing. This cargo e-bike meets the specifications of taller riders and veteran cyclists. So the goal is that it can both be a short stature, generally female friendly bike, but that it can expand up to fit taller riders as well. And the way they've done that is a few ways. First of all, there's a telescoping and dropper seat post. So the bike is designed so that you can lower that seat like super way down. It's also got 20-inch wheels and a really low rack so that everything is below 24 inches tall, including those 20-inch wheels. Then the handlebars are super adjustable as well. So if you're a shorter rider, you can drop those down. If you're a taller rider, you can bring them up. You can adjust the reach. And so basically, anyone from, I think they said the range was 5'0" to 6'7". It's about 152 to 200 centimeters, which is a super wide range for a single e-bike. And that's generally been the design goal here. Other than that, I mean, really, there's not that much special about the bike that's unique to other cargo e-bikes out there. It is a dual battery bike, which is nice when you see these cargo bikes that are built for carrying a couple kids, a lot of cargo. It's always nice to see a dual battery option because that's what really cuts into your range is when you're doing a lot of acceleration with a heavy load on the bike. So two batteries is nice. Hydraulic disc brakes, that's nice. Dual crown fork up there for carrying those heavier loads. But other than that, I think they're 3-inch fat tires or sort of balloon tires. So everything else is pretty standard. But really, it's that the dropper post, the super adjustable handlebars, and the really low center of gravity here, and that's what I think is important. Um, Here at the bottom there, I use my wife as an example because I'm sort of like a dude mansplaining bikes for women here. When from my own experience, it helps me to think about my wife. Where when I put her on these like taller Dutch bikes, it's harder for her. But when we went to Amsterdam and she tried this like basically elderly bike, they called it, and she was like, "This is perfect for me." And so having that lower seat, pedal forward design, the whole center of gravity being super low, she was really happy with that. And she's 160 centimeters. It's like 5'3". So as a shorter female rider, like every time I put her on a bike that I just take for granted as being fine, she struggles. And so, when I look at this bike and I try to think about who it's meant for, I try to like picture it from her perspective because, a lot of us that come into this from like a male dominated cycling perspective, we're just used to throwing our leg over anything and like, yeah, we'll make it work. But when you're 5'2", like you can't just make any bike work. And Seth, you're a lot taller than me, so I imagine you haven't really thought about this as well.
Yeah, I don't. I selfishly kind of think of, hey, is this bike good for me, and not so much my wife, who's around the same height as your wife. So perhaps that's, if you get a bike that's easier to ride, you'll get somebody who wants to go riding with you more often. So that may be a thing. I was thinking, she mentioned that there weren't any other female bike uh, owners or entrepreneurs, but we know Lynn from Carbo. She's kind of the mastermind of that bike company, and also that bike goes pretty low as well. But this is a great bike, great looking bike as well. It kind of in the same vein as the like the Rad. Didn't they
Radwagon?
reduce Rad Wagon? They reduced the size of the wheels on that last time around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I feel
the
like,
most recent update dropped it from, I think it was 20, to the 24 or 26 down to 22, I think.
yeah. So I don't know. I think the world is kind of hearing that, and the 20-inch wheels are making it easier for shorter folks to uh, get on bikes that are comfortable and easy to use. So
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely good luck for this one. I like the idea behind it. All right, moving forward, Bird launches improved new electric bikes, ditching the VanMoof like design.
Yeah, so if you guys remember Bird's original bike, it was launched a couple of years ago. We all kind of laughed that it was like basically a copycat of Van Moof's design. And so now that Van Moof is basically no more, when they just updated the new Bird bike, I guess they had to update the design as well. So now we've got a very different frame design here, but there are some other differences as well. It goes, a bit deeper than that. A few things. The battery has been updated to be larger. Now it's a 48 volt, 10.4 amp battery. So it's about 500 watt hours. Before it's a 36 volt battery. So already, we're getting more power from that 48 volt battery. That's great. Also, it's UL certified, and that's a huge issue these days. Both the battery and the entire drivetrain, and those are two different UL certifications when it comes to e-bikes. So it's great to see that. There are a lot of vendors that won't sell non-UL listed e-bikes these days. There are even places, college campuses, building co-ops that say you have to have UL listed. New York City now won't allow e-bikes to be sold in New York City that are not UL listed. So it's great to see that as well. It's there are a few other things that don't inspire huge confidence to me. For one, Bird itself is not in the best financial footing, though it seems like this is more of a licensing agreement. Basically, it seems like there's two companies here, Trade Hub and Spring, that have sort of partnered with Bird to really develop the bike and launch it. And Bird is lending their name for the most part, which to me is fine because if anything, that gives me a little more confidence that this isn't entirely dependent upon Bird. If anyone's been following their stock for the last couple of years, it's kind of cratered, and they were recently delisted from the New York Stock Exchange. So I think having a few larger partners in there is only going to help from that respect. But the bike itself, I mean, if anything, I like this design better than the original Van Moofian one. I think it doesn't look like a copycat. If anything, it looks a little more modern to me, and so I'm pretty happy with the redesign here. It's pretty fairly priced. Where was it? $12.99. So, for a 20-mile-an-hour bike, 500 watt hour battery, I think this is pretty reasonable. $1,300. How long is Bird going to be around? It doesn't seem like they've got that much time left in their current cash burn rate. But just judging by the bike itself, I'd say either Bird or their partners there did a pretty decent job with it. What do you think of the redesign, Seth?
Well, I was just actually looking for the old bike, and if you guys are watching us, it's on the screen now. They're actually selling it at one of our affiliate partners, Wellbots. And they're selling it for $775, which is kind of crazy.
Oh wow, yeah.
Um, I don't know if they have a white one or a gray one, yeah, but yeah, you can tell they have that top bar that kind of goes through and has the front and back lights like the VanMoof design. But That's actually a really good deal. I should probably share that with the 9 to 5 Toys team. Anyway, because I think it was like 1,000 before. So
Yeah, it wasn't
good to know.
cheap.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what to say. You remember when we had that RCA bike that wasn't really RCA. They were just kind of they sold the
Yeah.
brand afterwards. So this isn't really a bird bike. This is kind of another company or another two companies in this case licensing the brand. But it might be. I mean, if they're willing to do that, theoretically, they're pretty serious about building bikes here. So I wouldn't write it off immediately. And I think the design's pretty nice. And obviously, Bird is a brand that people know. So um, cool. Glad they did it. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and if anything, I actually like this step over design. I mean, it doesn't look like the cookie cutter, out of a Chinese catalog from an OEM design here. So I think, whoever actually did design this did a pretty decent job and didn't just make a standard white labeled e-bike here.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely nice. All right, let's move on. Yamaha unveils new self-balancing electric motorcycle without handlebars.
This one is just super strange. I don't even know how to tackle this. It's kind of a head scratcher. This is the second version of Yamaha's prototype here. It's called the Motoroid electric motorcycle. It's self balancing. It's got this really big, wide Y kickstand that'll lift up by itself once it gets rolling. Um, it's the steering, I don't entirely understand it, to be honest. So the rear swing arm also steers, because it's not just suspension, it pivots as well. So it's kind of got rear wheel steering. The front fork appears to steer as well. However, the handlebars are not connected to it. There aren't handlebars, there are instead hand grips that are fixed. So you're just kind of holding on to handles, and somehow the fork steers underneath you. It doesn't seem like your input is required or welcome, perhaps. Um,
Exactly.
it's designed to actually be riderless as well. So I think whether you're on it or not, it just kind of knows what to do. And there's a mode that apparently follows you, so you can be like walking in front of it, and it's kind of like that. What's that Boston Dynamics dog thing that follows
Yeah,
you around?
I don't
I think
remember
it
the name.
Yeah, that's the kind of idea here, I think, is that it can be like a little companion thing that rides along next to you. I'm not sure why you'd need a two-wheeler for that, but like the whole thing here is just a bit wild. The engineering, I love it. It's really cool to see that like pivoting member in the middle that gives it rear wheel steering, but I don't know who this is for, why it is for them, or what, like how they're actually going to produce this and sell it. This is one of those concepts that I think will probably never see the light of day, even though this is now the second version of it. But I don't know. Can you think of like a use for this?
No, it just seems like something you hop on and hop off of. It does kind of. So it reminds me that the handlebars aren't just for steering; they're kind of for holding on. And I almost feel like they should have handlebars for that purpose, not just like these little bars sticking out of the side of the. Uh, I guess where the fuel tank would be on a traditional bike. Uh, I don't know. I mean, I get why you do things like this. It's an exercise in design and functionality, and maybe maybe the steering pivot point in the middle becomes something that is actually valuable, or maybe people are eventually going to control their bikes like a joystick and like a pilot joystick like they have here. I don't know, but yeah, as
What if it
is, I
could
don't think.
be? Yeah. What if it could be like the robo taxi of the motorcycle world? That would be interesting.
Yeah, I guess. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, why don't robo taxis just have steering wheels just in case like things go bad? But maybe like taking the human out of the equation, you don't want a human to like grab the wheel and freak out because humans can do stupid things, and and theoretically the computer is going to be a better driver than the human at some point. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I would actually
sorry.
like to see these things self-balance. I I think I saw Corey Lewandowski, the guy that bounced around from like Uber and Google a little bit. He built one of these, but I don't think I've ever seen one working, like a working prototype.
Yeah, there's a company, I think somewhere in either California or the Pacific Northwest, called Wheel, that's doing
Hmm.
self-balancing electric bicycles, and they've had a couple of videos, and like it looks eerie, like it's like uncanny valley kind of
Right, Ghost
eerie.
Rider. Yeah,
Yeah, like it
interesting.
shouldn't be.
Right. All right, let's move on. BMW begins production of its lowest cost electric motorcycle yet.
I'm actually really excited for this one. This is the BMW CE02. It's the company's second electric motorcycle of this series. BMW's done other bikes before. There was the C Evolution several years ago, which is more of a maxi scooter. But this is the first sort of low cost, and I'm kind of finger quoting low cost here because I think it's in the high 7,000s, like $7,600 or something, 7,700. Um, so for an electric motorcycle, that's actually quite reasonable. For a starter motorcycle, it's a little bit up there. You know, you can buy a gas motorcycle for 2,500 bucks. But for electrics, this is like right in line with the CSCs, the Rivet Anthem, slightly above what the Metacycle was when it was actually shipping. But the design here, I think, is actually really interesting. They're absolutely targeting younger, more urban riders, trying to bring them into sort of the BMW fold here, and that's really what this bike is designed for. It gets up to about, I want to say, 55, 56 miles an hour. So it's not a high speed motorcycle. You're not taking this on the highway. Maybe like an urban highway kind of thing, but that's what it's designed for. Cruising around the city, college students, that sort of thing, where you're going to campus, going back. I mean, you could probably take this, anywhere in New York. The range is, I want to say it's something in the like high 50 miles when you're doing, slower speeds. Obviously, it's going to drop down a bit if you're pushing it up to top speed all the time. But as in one of this new sort of wave of urban light electric motorcycles, it absolutely has what I think is a pretty cool design, and I could see this actually working well with this younger crowd. It's sort of like the kind of folks that want a Super 73 for that culture, but want it to go almost 60 miles an hour safely, and have a motorcycle license and stuff. This is the kind of bike that can fulfill that. If anything, the motorcycle that Super 73 is working on, the C1X, I think like this is kind of what they were going for. And BMW seems to have achieved that. So the fact that they're now entering production, I think, is huge. Production is, I think it's in was it Taiwan? No, it's India, I believe, is where this one's being produced.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that, oh, that's right. Yeah, they're working with TVS. So it's being produced in India. Apparently, it's going to be released in India at some point, which is a big deal because there's like 100 to 1 market size in terms of India compared to the US for motorcycles. Maybe it's more than 100 to 1, like several orders of magnitude. But this is coming to the US. It's going to be reasonably priced at like, $7,700. And to me, this is a huge deal because it brings a well-known name, BMW Motorrad, into the US light electric motorcycle market, where there just aren't that many competitors, and the few that exist are really sort of younger startups or independents like CSC. So to me, this is a really big deal. I'm not exactly sure when these are going to start delivering. All we know is that production has started. So, great sign, but it's probably going to be several months before we actually get these things stateside. Probably just in time for it to not be riding weather anymore, is what I imagine.
Yeah, that's kind of happening soon here. The weather is getting colder, but this thing does look really, really nice. I was getting kind of a cake vibe from it, maybe the midsection a little bit.
Yeah, it's
Just
like if Cake got like a bit younger kind of thing.
yeah. Um, But yeah, it looks like a super neat bike. It looks easy to ride. Like tons of different rider types could jump on this. It's not pretending to be a bicycle like a lot of low cost motorcycle e-bike type combinations are trying to do just to become legal. This one's homologated. It's going to be legal. Like you're going to have to get insurance on it, and you're going to have to get a driver's license plate and all the other stuff. But that's good. We need some of that stuff, and obviously getting it homologated costs a bit. BMW is not a cheap brand, so it's a little pricey. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think it's worth it. Um, do you have any kind of ride planned for this, or are we still early stages at this
Yeah,
point?
not yet. We don't even know when it's exactly it's going to be in the country yet. So
But it's
no.
definitely coming to the U.S. though, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's coming to the U.S. And I believe the UK too. I'm not 100% positive on that, um, but we do know the US launch. And I just looked up the price. It is 75.99. So we have US pricing as well. And another
Not bad.
to your point about that this is actually fully homologated. It's designed for street riding, that sort of thing. The other upside of that is that unlike these sort of high power electric bicycles, this one, you go to any BMW motorcycle dealer and you've got local service and support. You can go and try it out. It's not like, when you have a Suron or a Talaria, it's like, where do I get this thing worked on kind of thing. You've got the full service and support of BMW's network, which is a huge deal, especially for someone who it could be their first bike, which I think a lot of the market is going to be people that are sort of bike curious here and that wouldn't have considered themselves, motorcycle people, but find this to be much more approachable.
Yeah. So to get a license on this, are you gonna? It's not moped. It's full on motorcycle, right?
Yeah, for most, I mean, it would vary state to state, but I can't think of any state that this would slide in under moped laws. Those usually go up to about 40 miles an hour max. Some places it's 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, and it's a belt drive, so it's gonna be quite quiet, I imagine, right?
Yeah, this thing is going to be very interesting. The design is also so. I think some of the concepts had this like skateboard slung sideways underneath it, so it was like the
Yeah,
foot like footrest as well. Like this, I mean, the design, they put some impressive work into this one. I think this is going to be pretty cool.
yeah, for sure. All right, we'll stay tuned for that. Hopefully, have a review sooner than later. And then finally, we did the electric review on the tiny Citroën Ami microcar, calling it just weird enough to work. And you did this in Santorini, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So, man, this feels like a lifetime ago, but it was just the end of last month. I was in Santorini, Greece, and I was there for like 6 or 7 days, and we rented this Citroën Ami. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing either of those correctly. So, any Francophiles here, please forgive me for the pronunciation. But this thing, just to sort of go over what it is, it's what's known as a quadricycle in Europe. So, it's kind of between the classification of a motorcycle and a car in that it doesn't meet full passenger vehicle regulations. So, it doesn't have airbags. It doesn't, have the same sort of crash protection, but that means that it's a lot more affordable. It's a lot lighter. It's like 1,000 pounds. Um, is the weight. It's priced at something like 7,400 euro, I believe, which is about $8,000, depending on the country. There are different subsidies, um, but functionally, it's basically a tiny car that doesn't actually qualify as a car. This specific model gets up to 45 kilometers per hour, which is 28 miles per hour. Um, it's what's known as an L6E quadricycle. There's also L7E, and they go up to I want to say like 80 or 90 kilometers an hour, like 55 miles an hour. So this one is a bit slower at 28 miles per hour. But the whole point is that it's a super convenient, very small format car. So for someone who wants, the advantages of a motorcycle or a bike and that it's small, it's cheap, it's light, you don't need a big parking spot. This gives it to you. But you don't have to have the same downsides of a car. That being said, there are some compromises here. So, for example, I'm used to just being able to park anywhere with my bikes and my motorcycles. With this, even though it's really, really small, you can't just like pull up onto the sidewalk and park like I'm used to doing. So there were times where we'd have to circle around and, look for parking spots for like 10 minutes. The other thing is that it doesn't have the same storage as a real car. So, we flew in, so we had our bags with us. We had, one like carry on trolley suitcase and one backpack. And the car fit those, but if we had had like any real luggage, it wouldn't have worked. There's no trunk. Most of the storage is at the feet of the passenger, which is, pretty deep. We fit two bags there, but still, like, there's not a lot of storage here.
Well,
Um,
first of all, I want to congratulate you on having your wife deal with the luggage while you hold the camera.
it was
But
demonstration purposes.
yeah, yeah, I get it. But I also like that's an interesting layout. I had no idea that what like I'm gonna try to go back to this where you guys were kind of sitting. I didn't realize how far back you were. It kind of looks like you get to have like a table in the front or something.
Yeah, so the dashboard is huge. There's sort of like three trays up there.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of weird because the windshield is so far away from you that it's a very strange feeling the first time you get in it or the first day or two, because the whole dash and everything is so far away in what is, looks like a very small car. One of the reasons for that is that the car is entirely symmetrical front to rear. And so, like, there's no separate bumpers or separate fenders. It's like one mold for the front, and it's the exact same piece on the back. They just
That's
put
crazy.
red lenses instead of clear lenses. So that's why it's got that sort of like weird extra space in the front. The doors, same thing. There's only one door design, and so it opens backwards on the driver's side. A lot of people call it suicide door, and then the passenger side is normal. And that way, it's the same door. They just take it around and bolt it on the other side. So you only need one mold for the door.
That's
All the
crazy.
glass symmetrical. Everything is entirely symmetrical. So it's another way they cut down on cost and get this thing down to like $8,000, which, I mean, when you look at it, it's it's not a full car, but like it's effectively like a tiny little car. So to me, that's a great price. Obviously not very powerful. It's like 8 horsepower, 6 kilowatts. Small battery. I think it's 5.5 kilowatt hours. So you get a claimed 75 kilometers, about 45 miles. Though in actuality, it's a little bit less. Knock off 10% for like real world losses. But all in all, I found this to be a super useful little vehicle for going around the island, and it was a good like sort of use case for it. Just like in a city, where if you think about like someone who just stays in a city, that's effectively an island to you if you're not getting on the highway. And so for us, just being able to go around all the the ring road around the island, obviously through the middle, these crowded streets, places where there are like big buses and vans, and a normal car couldn't squeeze through, we would squeeze through just fine. So I totally get why people would want one of these tiny cars if you're doing like really urban driving, or potentially like driving around a tiny Greek isle. One thing that was kind of funny is we actually got routed onto this. My wife called it a donkey road. It was basically like just like it wasn't even a gravel road. It was just sort of like rocks strewn around. And I was a bit worried because, for one thing, this doesn't have a spare tire. So, like, you got the four you got, and that's it. Like, take care of them. But it actually handled the off-roading quite well. We took it slow, and it was fine. Here you're seeing the charging issues I ran into. It's only level one charging. So we eventually did find one charging station on the island that had a wall outlet so that we could level one charge it. But without level two charging, you got to make sure that somewhere you've got a wall outlet to plug into, like a garage or something. Here's the quote unquote donkey road that we got directed onto.
That seems
This
reasonable.
was a hoot. Yeah, I mean, you can make it work. You can see how this is not what the Citroën Ami was designed for sure. We put that suspension to work. Have you ever been in one of these like tiny cars like this?
I mean, I've been in a smart car. I've been in a gem. Uh, I haven't
So this
been
is
in an
probably
Ami.
similar to the Gem, then, I would say. Yeah, because the smart car is like a real car in that, like, it's technically a full motor vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like stadium chairs kind of thing.
Right.
Or like in the arcade, those driving games where you got that like hard plastic chair. That's kind of like what it felt like.
I'm actually kind of surprised that these hills were not a problem with the. You said 8 kilowatt battery or eight kilowatt motor,
6 kilowatt.
six
Yeah,
kilowatt
so
motor.
I'm actually, you might notice I'm alone in this footage because my wife didn't think that it would make it up the hill. And so she didn't want to come on the hill climb challenge. And so I went up the hill myself and I was pretty
Okay.
confident, but I wasn't like sure it was going to climb that mountain. In the end, though, it actually worked. It was a little scary because there was like a 22 switchback road up that mountain with no
Hmm.
guardrails. And I was just like, man, I hope these Citroen brakes hold on the way back down because it's going to be a doozy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
all
that's
in all,
cool.
I would say
You know,
this is a fully functional vehicle for someone who just wants to stick to urban driving. 28 miles an hour, 60 to 70 kilometers, like 40 miles. I can see the use case, and for us, it worked great. For someone who needs more than two seats or needs to carry more than like two backpacks, it's going to be a hard sell.
Safety wise, are these up to car standards, or are they kind of like a three-wheel vehicle, or something less than that?
Yeah, absolutely not up to car standards.
Okay.
There's no airbags. You are effectively the crumple zone. I think someone
Gotcha.
put in the comments like you can improve the crumple zone by wearing like thicker shoes. Um, so yeah, safety is a. I don't want to say it's an issue because obviously everyone tries not to get into a wreck, right? So like
Right.
like most people aren't going to have to test the safety of it, but you're also not driving on highways and you're not going at speeds above 28 miles an hour, though actually, oh, so this is a fun little anecdote here. I actually got it up to like 45 miles an hour,
Wow.
but not the way I expected. So when you go down a steep hill, because there's regenerative braking, when you get over 28 miles an hour, it like kicks on the regen. So I only ever got it up to like maybe 29, 30 miles an hour on a downhill. But there was one day where we charged it, I guess, at the top of a hill, and then we went down towards the coast. And all of a sudden, we're going faster than I thought when we, just took off the charger and we're driving down the hill. And I looked down and we're going like 55, 60 kilometers an hour. Eventually got it up to I think 73 or 74 kilometers an hour. It was like 45 miles an hour. And I realized what happened was because the battery was full, the regen wasn't working for that first few percentage points. And so it was basically freewheeling, like when you take, a bike down a big hill. And so it was letting me go just as fast as gravity would take the thing. And that was wild. It was like you were in like a roller coaster doing 45 in one of these things.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Citroen doesn't have like good old fashioned caliper brakes enacted when you're going down the hill as
To
well.
like auto prevent that. Yeah. I mean, so
Yeah.
there are, mechanical brakes, but yeah, they certainly don't auto engage in that situation. I mean, it's a very rare thing. Like, what are the odds that you'll like charge at the top of a hill and then immediately go down a big hill? I just got super lucky that we we wound up in that exact situation.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm in Paris right now. I might try to go find one of these.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You might even like just find a rental place. That's what I did when we were there. I just looked up like what kind of cool electric rentals are around. In this place, you had to scroll to like the very bottom of the car list, and there was this like one little Citroën Ami. So you might find some interesting rentals.
Cool. So let's look into the comments here. I think a little bit early on looks heavy. We're probably talking about that Yamaha bike.
Yeah, there was a beast.
All right, James Harrison. Rumor has it that Ride One Up is adding a folding bike. Any insight here?
I can neither confirm nor deny rumors about said bike.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
All right. We have a question about the Cybertruck. Come back in about 4 hours. We'll talk Cybertruck with Fred. And then finally, Extra Hero says, my main question is, Micah, is you and all your loved ones okay regarding the current events? We know that you're based in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and it's been kind of crazy there.
Yeah. Yeah, things are not great here in Israel. Fortunately, me and all of my immediate family are safe. We did have some close calls. I had a family member at the party in the south um, that was able to escape, and so everyone is currently okay. But the idea of okay has kind of changed over the last few weeks. So I certainly appreciate you checking in.
Yeah, certainly hope everybody stays as safe as possible there.
Absolutely.
Uh,
We're hoping for better days.
yep.
Okay, so on that note, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We had a number of great stories this week. We're looking forward to even more next week. So make sure you check back. We'll be back in another 2 weeks with the next episode